Yeah, morning troops. It's February 16th and I'm back from Hawaii. So my pasty white skin, which is a relic of my upbringing, is slightly more tanned in the middle of February as we've been outside with another very successful training camp in Hawaii. We had our pros there for the first week or 10 days and then flooded in with a very vibrant group of amateurs, including Dave, who's joining me here live. And we had a super camp, good weather, great group, great community, a really good connection of pros and amateurs as well. We got to really mix in the pros into the amateur camp this year, which made it a lot of fun, a lot of really nice group dinners every night. So it was a successful camp for us. Now we're back to normal, we're marching on. And with that, I want to spend about 15 minutes today talking about training camps and the value of training camps, and really what is the purpose? What's my purpose of why we put on training camps for coached athletes, as well as the mindset of the coached athlete actually going there, and what can they yield out of it? What's the benefit out of a training camp? So we'll launch into it. We've got some stragglers maybe joining us a little bit later live. We shall see. If not, it's just Dave and I today. We'll be an extremely small group, but Dave was at camp, so I'll perhaps ask Dave his thoughts on camp after I finish my little monologue here. So let's talk about that with training camps. And I think the first thing that we should do is define sort of what I think about as a training camp. I view camps as being what we just did in Hawaii, which was a multi-day experience that's coach-led. And so athletes are coming in and they're guided through workouts with a combination of education, skills, and training. I think there's also real value for athletes to do training retreats or training escapes, whatever you want to call it, where that's more going with a friend or maybe going individually, getting out of your environment, not your home environment, not working for a few times, and going to put in some good work, some good solid work. That has real benefit. There's great time strategically to going away and doing a riding weekend in Lake Tahoe in the summer, or heading to Arizona in the winter and doing a few days of training. There's real benefit of that, but the benefit is very different than the mindset and the real benefit that you can gain from a total immersion experience, which is coach-led. So let's think about the value of a camp in scope of your entire season, because ultimately we're not just going to a camp for a block of work. We're looking to hopefully integrate a camp so that it can be a platform of success for your entire season. And so what the camp is not, in my mind, is the week of training that your season will be built on. So it isn't actually that critical what the work is that you get done there. It's not to say that we don't want to work really hard. We don't want to accumulate a training. We don't want to actually come out of it with all of the benefits. If you did go away individually and go and do a week of training somewhere, we want that. But that's not what the success is really built on. If we think about training success, no individual session and no individual week is going to make you successful in an upcoming race. And so with the athletes that just did the Hawaii training camp, they were away for give or take a week of training, but their upcoming race in April or May or June or the July Ironman, whatever they might be doing, that won't be successful or unsuccessful based on the quality of the work that they actually did in those 4, 5, 6, 7 days of training in Hawaii. Because we know that performance success is built on that magic word, consistency. And when you go away on a training camp, this is a big hit of work. Bam, a lot of hours over the course of just a few days. It's a big hit. It's high value. But ultimately, performance is built on consistency. And that consistency comes from layering and layering and layering and layering of specific training. So if success is not built, at least your race result success is not built on the actual physiological component of the big hit, what is it? Well, what I see as a training camp is it's really a platform for you to go home and build on. And that platform has some physiological ramifications of, okay, it's a little bit of a kickstart. It's a little bit of an opportunity to go and create a fitness boost with, bam, when you're not working, when you haven't got your family, you're just able to go there and do a big work. There is some physiological sort of platform building, but really it's a mindset and intent platform. And so when you come to a camp, it's a great opportunity, especially if the coach leading the camp is the coach prescribing your workouts at home. So if the people that came to the Hawaii training camp, I'm the prescriber of the workouts, I deliver the methodology, they're the recipients, they go and execute. And so the way that it becomes a platform is I wanted every athlete to leave with the key sessions really cemented in mind of what's the meaning behind those sessions, what is the intent of those sessions. So one of the things that was really important from an educational standpoint is to have athletes go through training sessions that are relatively similar or have components within them that are very similar to the type of training that they're going to go and do at home. And we first really wanted to ensure that the intent of the sessions is understood. And then in the environment of the training camp, you, the athlete, gets to go and execute those training sessions in front of the coach, in front of the person prescribing them. So now there's the cognitive understanding of this is the intent, and then there's the actual execution. Are you doing it really well? Are you doing it as intended? What are the areas that you actually need to focus on? And that sounds really basic, but even a couple of the sessions that we did, hill running loops onto track in the run session, big gear strength endurance work on the bike, two examples of something that's the heartbeat of our personality of training. And almost every athlete had mini or grand epiphanies on, crikey, this is how I'm supposed to be doing it. This is the mindset. This is the actual action that's necessary. And hopefully by going and understanding the intent, having the education of the intent, executing those in front of myself and Paul and the other coaches, and then leaving with a real understanding of this is the element that I need to work on based on the above. So based on the intent, based on my execution of it, when I go home and I see these sessions or pieces of these sessions, I know what my focus needs to be. I know where I need to place my intention. I know what I'm trying to get out of it. And as much as we do these educational sessions, which are really valuable and really important, and I realized at this camp, really powerful, because people came at this with a running start. It wasn't teaching something from the ground up. So they understood in many ways the intent, but then going to execute, that was a hugely valuable thing. So that intent component, it helps maximize and build the platform for when you come home and you go and execute the training sessions for the subsequent months, you have real focus and understanding what there is. So there's sort of an intent and execution component. There's also a real platform of education that occurs. And when you're immersed with coaches, not just for a day, not just for a clinic, but for multiple days in a row, including going to dinner, including walking to sessions along the beach and just chatting, you get to sort of have this total immersion experience of education. And I think this is really important. One of the things that we've realized as well with this camp is that we're actually offered an opportunity. Every athlete that was at the Purple Patch Kona camp is a Purple Patch or is currently a Purple Patch athlete. And that's really beneficial because of these sessions that we have. Over the last couple of years, we've really ramped up, as everyone knows, the education. We have these opportunities to deliver the meaning, to deliver the background, to deliver the education through the coaches bulletin, through these meetings with Matt, through the written materials. And I really found that what that enabled us to do is to have athletes come in with a great baseline education, a great baseline understanding of the methodology. And that's a really important thing because it enabled us to shift the education a little bit. And the education in the camp that we could do here was more doing than it was classroom setting, because we didn't have to go ground up with the classroom setting, and that becomes really important. But for you as a Purple Patch athlete, then what you get to do in these camps is to have more of doing in front of the coach, actually experiencing it. And then the rest of the education became very heavy on Q&A and really bubbled up and highlighted some of the things that were less understood, some of the things that were common themes amongst person. And that small group learning, that almost live meetings with Matt, roundtable discussion, incredibly effective for athletes. And I think that the second piece, after the understanding of intention and execution, becomes the global education, a really invaluable exercise of getting your questions answered as you're training. And that's really important, because when you're training, that's when all the questions arise. And sometimes it's hard to then, when you sit 2, 3, 4 hours later and you're having a meetings with Matt session here, it's sometimes hard for us to join the dots and really think about the things that come up. So in action, live training sessions, Q&A, it becomes an education. And I think that's empowering for athletes to leave with that. A third value of training sessions is habit creation. And this is heightened in a camp environment. When you go away for multiple days in a row and we extract life a little bit. So we extract work, we extract commitments that we have at home. And now for several days in a row, you're fully immersed in training. And what that enables us to do is start to actually think about as a greater prioritization, the supporting cast elements, what you're doing with hydration, what you're doing with fueling during and immediately following exercise, your daily nutrition, sleep, which becomes a priority at camp. And the interesting thing is, because it is a total immersion camp and you're compressing a lot of training hours relative to what you're typically doing at home into 4, 5, or 6 days of training, what actually happens there is it maximizes the effect, it heightens the effect in both a positive way and a negative way around your key habits. So the effect of great sleep, you really feel the benefits of that. In a camp environment, if you have a bad night's sleep or you have less sleep than is optimal, you really feel that. And the same occurs with hydration, with nutrition, with energy management throughout the day, with pacing. So you have all of these elements where we talk about self-management, we talk about hydration, returning to hydration status between sessions. We talk about fueling during workouts, post-workout fueling, the quality of sleep. All of these things become magnified in camp. And so you actually get to learn some lessons as you go. And we had people learn as they went. They're training so much that now their fueling became really important. And they went through it, and when they slipped, when they missed, boom, and they had sugar crashes. And so they're like, wow, that's actually really amazing. I went through that feeling. And now how do you manage out of that? And being coached to manage out of a sugar crash, because you've still got the rest of that session and another session in the day. And so it becomes really magnified. And so what I saw athletes getting on almost a session by session basis is, what did I learn out of that session? What did I go through? What were some of the experiences beyond how many miles did I do? What pace did I run at, or whatever it might be? It was some of the elements of, what did I execute well? What did I execute poorly, pacing wise? How did I execute on my fueling? And having a sugar crash is a great way to realize, wow, I actually am not fueling very well in the workout, especially as it's my third workout of the day now. So what did I do poorly? And a lot of people came away with these self-management lessons, and I think had a heightened emotion of these elements of habits and self-management and sleep and everything become really important. And if I'm going to go and live a busy life again back at home with work, family, commitments, and in a great training. Even though it's not a training camp environment, there's a heightened appreciation of the value of those things in the overall spectrum of training. And that becomes a really valuable lesson. And so people really manage to yield out of that. So we have this platform of intent and education. We have a platform and opportunity of education around all of the key elements, building off of the education that you have at home, but really becoming in flight. And then we have this school of learning of the heightened sensations of how to execute the training, what happens when you don't, what happens when you have to manage stress. And that forces you to bring home with you, hopefully a refined or a refreshed vision on the habits that are important, how you're going to approach the training, understanding what the training is. And that is why a camp is really valuable. It's really that. So yes, you get a hit of training. Yes, you get to work hard. And yes, you get really fatigued. But it's what you bring home from a platform standpoint that really empowers the athlete. The two other elements that I think are really valuable. The first is it cements, in a unique way, it cements your relationship with the coach. And I would say actually it cements your relationship with Purple Patch as a methodology, as a mindset, as an approach. Because when you get those elements, you start to think, you get so many individual aha moments that most people tend to return with a bit of a mindset of, okay, this is my mission. And that's one of the reasons that so many people return to camps time and time again, and they feel like it's so important because it ties in their relationship. And if you're not based in San Francisco, once you come to a camp like this, it's really powerful because you cement in, and because of those moments, because it builds your platform, it cements that coaching relationship. And that's a really powerful thing for you as the athlete. Obviously, it's important for me because it provides context. We see you move, we see you under challenge, we see you under stress. And that provides real context when you're providing recommendations and training advice and individual sort of prescriptive notions. But for you, the athlete, it ties in, it gets that. And then the second auxiliary sort of moment is it's really fun. It's a really empowering thing. It's refreshing. You would only do this sport, well, either through self-hatred because it's extremely challenging, or because of the joy of the challenge. And I hope that it's because of the joy of the challenge. And to immerse yourself in an environment with like-minded people in genuinely as much of an ego-free environment as you can possibly create. And I think that's something that I'm very proud of from a Purple Patch standpoint, but there is an ego-free environment. But you get to train with like-minded people and you get to learn from them. You get to learn from each other. So a source of learning is actually within the community itself. Remove me, remove the coaches from it. And that's really empowering. So the final thing is these are really darn fun. They're great times. They're empowering and they should leave you there. So to sum up, at the training camp generally, a coach-led training camp, which is very different than a training escape, I think it's good to talk about two other things. First is the coach's goal. So what's my goal of it? So my goal, I go with a camp with really three goals. The first is education. I want to get across what I feel like is the most important intent of the methodology. I want people to understand why they're doing the sessions that they're doing. And I want to educate them on the things that they need to work on, the athletes, the individually they need to work on. So a skills component, a mindset component, or elements of that. So the first is education for me. The second goal for me is to take the group and to challenge them, to actually stretch them and do things that maybe they thought they couldn't do. But I want each individual athlete to be successful. So there's a big difference for me challenging people and having them break through and be successful, or just beating people up. And we had 20 campers in Hawaii. Within 24 hours, I could have put everybody on the ground on their backs. It's not hard to make people tired, but it is more of an art to challenge people and help them be successful. And there's a wide scope of level of fitness and level of performance, but that's the second goal, challenge with success. And out of that becomes the final goal, which is to build confidence and to have actually every athlete come with a little bit of a mission and a sense of empowerment and a sense of ownership over their training and their performance. So I have 3 goals: education, challenge, and confidence. My goal is not to beat people up, and that's really important. And I think that's an important mindset for the athlete to appreciate. So the final thing is then, what does the athlete need to have to make this successful, to build the platform? And the first is be really open to the environment and the lessons. So I think you have to come. I think a lot of athletes arrive with preconceived notions of what to expect, how they're going to approach it, and what they want to get out of it. And I think the first is be really open. The second is to embrace the immersive elements of it and drawing with the mindset of I'm here to go away with a platform. And that's very different than I'm here to go and train really hard. That's going to happen anyway. The hours of accumulation, the little physiological hit from a training platform, that's the easy part. But if you really embrace, I'm going to try and draw the lessons, I'm going to listen and learn, then you will come out of it. And so if you show up thinking I'm here to get some good training in, your only yield will be those training sessions. But if you show up with a mindset of emotion and say, I want to go away and learn from this, you're going to go home and have a runway of confidence, intent, and opportunity to execute. And then a training camp becomes a catalyst for success. But I think only then does that occur. So there is a responsibility of the coach to hopefully deliver something. There's the responsibility of the athlete to immerse themselves, take what's being delivered, be open to what's being delivered and suggested. And then the final element is to go home and work on it. And there's only one person that can do that, and that's you, the athlete. So if you just come a little bit of an escape and go home and return to old habits, it's a good fun training escape. If you go, you immerse yourself, you return and you put into action your responsibility, your character, your mindset, your ownership, it is high value. It's precious. You can't get a better value. So if we've achieved that, the week is a massive success. And if we achieve that ultimately, it's much more than a week escape of training. It is a platform to go on and be successful. So I hope that gives you color for a training camp. Why don't I open up Dave's muffled microphone and I guess I'll put myself to the test. Dave, you're in Hawaii. Does that resonate with you as a concept? Did you feel like you left with elements of that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first part though is we all, or most of us that go to a camp, we leave our day-to-day life behind and we become semi-pros for a couple of days, and it gives you a lot of appreciation for the guys that do that for a living. Because I mean, we had 20 some hours of work in 5 days, and they have a lot more than that in a week. The second part is definitely the openness. I came in, yes, I do well, I have swimming, I have all that, but I came in and said, you know what, I'll just listen to anything. And Jerry, for example, switched me immediately to breathing every other stroke. Now, just 2 responses, right? The first one is, nah, I know what I'm doing. I swim a 110 Ironman, I'm okay. Or at least for the camp, and then maybe take it to practice and say, you know what, I'll try it. What's the worst that can happen? If it goes horribly wrong, I have the people there in the camp to fix it. So the open mind is, I think, one of the most important things, because if it's not open, you're not going to get much. And then the other part is is just the instruction. I mean, when we go and you go to a week somewhere where there isn't a coach, you're still doing the same mistakes. One of the things I learned was that I can go harder on the harder and sometimes even on the easier. And I know I was going up to Javi and you came by, obviously sweating profusely on the scooter, and set more tension on the chain during an easy interval. At home or in a week vacation with a bike, I would have never put more tension on the chain, because for me, easy meant that. With that said, now I know easy means, you still want to have so much tension on the chain that the blood in the legs actually is moving versus just hanging around for a spin. And harder can be harder. And if you don't pick that up in a camp, how are you going to pick that up? Because no one on a social bike ride over the weekend is going to tell you, hey, you need to put more tension on the chain, because that's not what the social ride is for. So openness and picking up the things that you need and want and trying them out in camp is certainly a lot of the things I learned.
And it's a really, I mean, you make a great point. It's funny. One of the things that I find, two things that we see with campers on a very common basis. The first is the self-management through sessions. So how they're executing, and sometimes it's the recovery. You talked about, you were going, in your case, so easy that there was no tension on the chain. You weren't going easy. I said, let's still make movement. You can still recover at effort. And that was a real epiphany. But how people manage themselves through sessions with the pacing component, going out way too hard. And when you're doing it in front of sessions in a safe environment, and I don't mean health and safety, I mean a safe environment to fail, where what's the worst can happen? You can get into a van. To actually go and execute and improve self-management, improve execution is a great thing to go away. The other thing that I see very commonly with athletes is when they come away, when you're training alone, it's easy for an athlete to get comfortable or shackled in many ways with what is hard work. And it's very rare for me to meet an athlete in this situation where we choose to do Ironman, half Ironman, Olympic distance, triathlon. No one's lazy. It's very rare that I'll find anyone that's lazy. Everyone's motivated. Everyone wants to work hard. But when you go away and you just train, people start to get a gauge of what easy, moderate, hard is. And quite often, very commonly, and Dave, you're not one of these actually, but it's very common that people's hard is at a certain level, and it slowly goes down. And it's so funny, when you go to a coached environment, a group environment, they find out what their hard is, and that's sort of part of the challenge. And sometimes we'll have people riding along, and we'll just use arbitrary numbers, where we had someone at camp, my FTP, my benchmark assessment on the bike is 220 watts. So they can hold 220 watts for their FTP test at home. And yet I had them riding for half an hour up the ridge at 270 watts. So they averaged for 30 minutes, 50 watts more than they did on their 20-minute time trial. And that wasn't because of physiological improvement. It was just finding out, driving the tools, but finding out what hard is. That's hard. And they were pretty tapped by the end of the 30 minutes, but that's hard. That's your new gauge. But what happens to that athlete then? What happens to the way that they look in the mirror, the way that they look at themselves, the way that they look at the numbers that they're generating? If they look at them and say, you just rode 30 minutes at 270 watts while I was drinking my coffee on the scooter next to you. But what happens to the athlete's self-perception? Because when they go home, if they see 5 by 5 minutes strong, they're not going to do it at 230 watts because it's around their FTP. They're going to say, hang on, that's my new barometer of success. And it just opens up gateways. And of course, that's an extreme example, but it happens all the time. And so those are the two elements that we really see in a person's ability to self-manage, and then a shift in perception of themselves, of what they're capable of. And they come away and say, wow, actually, this is hard and I am strong. And that's quite often the case. And with people that, especially people that don't train in a group environment or are not challenged outside in person, it's very common. And so just going there, it can be the catalyst to shift people's perceptions on themselves. So so I will say, and I say this, making it sound like we're participating in an infomercial, that I'm leading to the what's that shot, the TV show called the QVC or whatever. This is not the shopping network, but we do have 2 more camps this year, at least 2 more camps. But the 2 coming up are the mini camp in San Francisco, which is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think we've only got 3 spots there. I did see someone sign up last night, I believe, Jen. So we're going to talk to you in a second. Yeah, and we have 3 spots, and we're just about to promote that on social media. It's live, but we just haven't really even promoted it yet. And then South Carolina, a Hawaii light training camp in South Carolina, August 6th through or 2nd through 6th, which obviously for late season Ironman or half Ironman, Chattanooga, 70.3 Worlds, super opportunity there. Some climbing that's very similar to Chattanooga and what's going to be on the course there. Hawaii athletes, great opportunity for South Carolina. It will be a slightly smaller camp than Hawaii, but it will be the same duration, same time that we'll be doing it.
Hey, Matt, maybe since we are on the infomercial version of this, always also call plan support to see if it fits in your schedule, because I remember asking you, I'm 3 weeks out from an Ironman, is a camp really the right thing to do and all that? And, you said, we can adjust the workload and make it work. And for me, it was basically, that last big week of work before I'm in New Zealand. So I think depending when you race this, it can actually be a really nice last push-up, especially in the middle of the year.
Yeah, and even, a couple of our pro athletes, we had, I had Laura training through at camp until the Sunday, and then she got on the plane Sunday morning, arriving to, because of the time change, arriving late Tuesday night into New Zealand, and she's racing on Saturday. So we just managed the last few days of camp for her. Sam Appleton is racing this Sunday, which is really Saturday US time, down in Geelong in Australia. So we have a lot of athletes that do camps into races. But it's a great point, Dave. If you're not sure, it might not be the right time. So the last thing we would want people to do is come to a camp if it didn't fit, if it was really bad timing. Let's say, do I go and do a training camp the week before the World Championships? Probably not. But 3 or 4 weeks before, probably. So always reach out to us and ask if you're interested. So let's go any questions. We've got it's a as I've been away, it's always the first one back is a light day. But let's go to Super Jen, who had the sniffles yesterday. How are you doing? Any questions today globally?
No, all good. I was the person who signed up last night.
Yeah, I know.
And it's 3 weeks before Santa Rosa, right? So it should be fine. Should be actually perfect timing. It
couldn't be better. St. George or Santa Rosa for that San Francisco camp. If you're doing 2 weeks later, it's perfect timing.
All right, great. Yep, I'm excited about it because I just want someone to watch what I'm doing outside. You cannot get that anywhere else, really.
You and as Dave would tell you, I mean, we spent a lot of time there really talking about the sessions, and then in the sessions itself helping in flight, and that's the really important part. I will say, but globally, if people are going to do the San Francisco camp, it's a 3-day camp, but the other opportunities, the way to extend it is everyone knows we have a San Francisco squad. So if anyone wanted to say, you know what, it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday camp, but I'm going to come in Monday night and I'm going to swim and run with the squad and do bike class and a run off on Wednesday and swim and run on Thursday and go into camp and make it a great week, or stay on the next Monday, Tuesday sort of thing. All of the opportunities are there to do that. So if folks are coming in for San Francisco, either side of that, you can always extend it if you have time and desire. And that would be absolutely complimentary. Any athlete that wants to come to San Francisco and train with us in the group environment, that no one would ever get charged anything for that, apart from things like entrance fee to the swimming pool and stuff like that. But Jen, you're obviously already a participant in that stuff, so that doesn't apply. People
Excellent, thanks.
Yeah, super. We're looking to have you. Super, Chad. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good, man. You're loitering on towards the end of the call. Any questions today?
No. I just wanted to loiter. Nothing I can think of.
Good man. Super, Dave. As you're going into Hawaii, not Hawaii, New Zealand. Any questions before I mention?
Wishful thinking, no. Pretty good here.
All right, good man. Well, let's talk through two other things that I think are important. The first is required reading today. It's in your inboxes. I believe it arrived in your inboxes as we were launching this meeting. This week's Coaches Bulletin, very important, and there are two components to it. We're going to talk about it on next week's meetings with Matt, and we're going to spend 2 sessions, both Monday and Thursday, talking about this. A new concept around running, and it's not when I say new, it's regurgitated way of education. So it's a shift of a way of describing what we've long tried to describe, and sort of talked about it. It's called MFP, minimum form pace. And I won't say any more apart from required reading before next week's meetings with Matt. I really want you to go and read both the concept of meeting with Matt that I wrote about, and then the question of the week, which goes through the intent of the different running sessions. Next week's meetings with Matt, we're going to talk about the elements of good running form, and we'll go back through those because we have to understand the elements in order for minimum form place to apply. And it's a little bit of a teaser here, but minimum place to apply. And then we're going to talk about how that applies in training. So integrating this mindset, trumping zones in many ways into your training. And so to get the most out of next week's meetings with Matt sessions, I really encourage you to go and read Coach's Bulletin, question of the day, and go through them there. In the subsequent weeks, we're going to talk about the basics of training. So the keystone habits. We're going to talk about brick runs and hill running sessions that become more of a feature in the subsequent training. We're going to talk about daily hydration and energy management tips. So that's a little bit of a human performance stuff. The connection between the strength work into training, endurance training. We're going to talk about travel in early March and the business traveler, those that have to travel a lot for business. And I'm creating a travel protocol for athletes that travel. And then as we go towards the end of March, we're going to talk about early season racing and the approach and mindset for successful early season racing. So that's about the next 6 weeks of meetings with Matt that I just went through there. So we'll go through those sessions as ever, record them, upload them to the education tab, and go from there. But don't finish your week without spending a little time reading this week's Coaches Bulletin if you don't get it, and pin it. We're going to post it up into the education. It's only available currently to you guys, the Purple Patch athletes, because of the lock function. But I really encourage you to read that. And then bring your questions to next week's meetings, because if you can get this as a concept, and the athletes in Hawaii got it as a concept, and I think when the running more than anything came home with, I get it. If we can get it, I think it's going to be helpful for you as a mindset, how we manage training and racing as we go to that. So good stuff, guys. Thanks so much for coming and joining. Nice to see you, Chad. Jen, I hope you feel better and march through the weekend. And Super Dave, good one. Travel safe. I'll deliver the plan into New Zealand, guys. All right.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.